Hey guys, my name is Kris Barocsi. This is my second comment time video. First comment is from Michael Luna, or maybe Michael Lunar. I bought this for my vintage style telly. Have to try it out yet, but if it works, you don't have to lose the neck or the strings. Any thoughts, Kris? Thanks for the tutorial. The product Michael was writing is this kind of a screwdriver, like a flathead screwdriver that's really narrow, and it's supposed to help you adjusting the truss rod on a vintage style Fender guitar without removing the neck, without loosening the neck. Yes, I tried that just because of your comment. I actually never gave it a go, but I read your comment and I tried it, and it didn't work for me. I don't know. I tried on vintage style bass and two different vintage style guitars. It just didn't work. There is no space for the head of the screwdriver without scratching something. You know, you can scratch your pick guard even if it has like this kind of a round routing, you know, like shaped hole basically for the screwdriver. Still, you will sort of scratch it or, you know, destroy it. And on my telly or on my Strat, you don't even have this kind of help, like the pick guard is just covering the hole of the screw on the truss rod. Some like it, and I'm wondering, maybe you can tell us if it worked for you. Where did you get the dowels to fill the bridge holes? Great video. Thank you, William. I appreciate it a lot. Well, actually, I got it from our kitchen. This is what I was using. This small wooden stick is basically something you use to cook something like shashlik. What was it? Shashlik? Shish kebab? I think it's called shish kebab. It's birch, and it's really hard. It's really nice and round. So if you manage to put this in a hole, what you want to fill on the headstock or in the body, this will fit perfectly. And if you use good wood glue, it will be a perfect, fit. Tonehammer asked, "Hey Kris, I'm really wondering how the King of Tone or Prince of Tone would work boosting a high gain amp like a rectifier compared to a Maxon 808 or similar. Thoughts?" Thanks, Tone. Yeah, so he wrote this under my King of Tone versus Prince of Tone video, and my initial thoughts were, it's not a good idea to use one of these pedals as a booster. But they do have a mid-hump, so they do have a pretty nice and strong mid-range. The only trouble is, especially with the King of Tone, is that it has way too much bass. And it will not necessarily tighten up your sound. Let's say it's a dual rectifier or something like that, you know, that really needs some help to stay focused. Or something like a Plexi even, it doesn't have to be a metal amp. Plexis or even JTMs are really wobbly on the low end. So if you want to make sure that it stays tight, and the sound is tight for all the palm mutes and whatever, you could benefit from something like a Tube Screamer, a Maxon 808, all these kind of drives. The King of Tone, in my opinion, has just way too much low end. That's what you love about it when you play it through a clean amp. It still has the balls and it sounds huge like an amp. So that's cool for that, but it's not the best for boosting. The Prince of Tone, on the other hand, is probably way better because you have this little dip switches inside. And one of the dip switches, the one with the 1 above, that is your low mids, sort of lows, what you can boost or just turn it off, which means you have less, way less bass than the King of Tone. And that can be a very useful thing if you want to boost with the Prince of Tone a higher gain amp sound. TTB fan. Kris, what do you think about the D&M drive? I had the D&M drive on my board during my 2.5-year wait for the King of Tone. I know it's not the same thing, but it is extremely versatile and widely available. And he does like his King of Tone, etc. Thank you very much, TTB. I love the D&M drive. It's a very different animal though. The mic side is very much mid-focused. I would say it's somewhere between a tube screamer kind of sound and a clon kind of pedal. Somewhere between those. And the Dan side is way more aggressive and fizzy and has way less mids than the King of Tone. So I would reckon it's something like an OCD, something like that. I know Dan loves OCDs for a long time now, so I'm guessing that was kind of a sound he was going for. And they do stack extremely well, the two sides of the D&M drive. So it's an awesome pedal. Fatboy21 writes under my King of Tone video what the hype is about, etc. It's good, but it's not an amp, so why bother with the waiting to buy? The best OD sound comes from loud amps, and nowadays you can crank almost any amp with an attenuator like the Tunos Captor or Sur or anything. And if I have amp like yours, I guarantee I'll get better OD tone than the King of Tone, plus I won't bother looking at the King of Tone. Okay, that's cool. You like amp sounds more. That's totally fine. I don't. It's just a personal thing. I did have dozens of amps, all the great British ones, a number of the awesome American ones. I still own my Mark III, my Mesa Mark III, and I still love it. But I was really struggling getting that kind of tone, what I love about the King of Tone. So it doesn't really sound like an amp I ever came across. And that's all right, because I don't need amp distortion in my life for the most cases. And if I do, I have my preferences, and I will, love using a Friedman or my Mark III or whatever, an Engel for really modern tight sounds, or a Bogner or whatever, you name it. There are so many good sounds. It's just a preference thing. So, you prefer an amp sound more? Awesome. Good for you, man. You'll have to pay way more than just buying a King of Tone, but you don't have to wait that long. It's cool. Tied-eyed Steve. I thought the Klon Center was the most hyped Holy Grail pedal of all time. Yeah, sort of it is. Yeah, that's like the number one, of course, because it's been discontinued for ages and it was only in production for a few years. And I'm guessing, I have no information, like, real numbers, but I'm guessing there are like a few hundred units out there in total, and that's it. And that's, not a lot. So of course prices will go way higher because it's way more collectible. But funny enough, you don't see original clones on pedal boards that often, probably for that reason, because it's so rare. But you do see King of Tones and Prince of Tones on many professional musicians' board. It is not the most hype one, but it's one of those. Gemma Samer, or Gima Samer. I don't understand why you're masking off the back of the neck. This was a comment on my Squier refinish, modifying whatever video. The one episode where I was finishing the neck. And I masked off the back of the neck. I can show it. Here you go. This is what I did. I masked off the back of the neck because I knew that I will not want to have any finish at this part of the neck. I prefer having wood under my fingers and not finish, you know. And I will oil it and wax it to protect the wood from humidity, and that's cool. I masked it off because I didn't want to have like a huge part that I will have to sand off afterwards. I do have crazy strong lines now. Obviously, if I remove the masking tape, I will have these lines, but that's alright because I can use a small piece of sanding paper and sand this to make it make it more natural. Like going from a lacquered part to a natural part, so it will sort of look like, you know, you rubbed it off with your finger, which is something that happens to some real vintage instruments. Again, Michael Luna. What's the benefit of wet sanding? It's often pointed out in videos about guitar building, but I got an explanation why luthiers do that. I can't wait for the next episode to see which finish you will apply to the body. Thanks, Michael. Wet sanding, well, there are a couple of good reasons for doing that. First of all, it might sound ridiculous, but believe me, that's important. If you use these finer grit sanding pads dry, you can throw them away within like 5 minutes. They get abused and, you know, filled up with all that, you know, dirt coming off, whatever it is you're sanding. And also because it's a way more even sanding. You don't scratch the surface if you use something like water to sand. That helps a lot to get a nice and even surface without any scratches, without any issues, and it just works better. This came from Stanislav Migra. Hello Kris, I have a question about a setup for 7¼ inch radius guitars. Legends say it is hard or impossible to bend on these guitars until you set them up perfectly. What does that mean? I really enjoy that round type of neck for open chords and whatnot, but I'm not sure what to do if my bends just choke on that kind of guitar. At the moment I don't have any guitar like that, but fell in love with a 60s type Vintera Tele, so I want to be prepared. Yeah, a 7¼ inch radius is a tricky one because you do have to stick to a certain string action. If you go too low with your strings, that choking out thing starts to happen, and that's annoying. There's a trick I did a couple of times on guitars. You have your normal 7¼ inch radius all through the fretboard, first fret, last fret, and then from the middle you start to dress the frets in a way that you make it flatter, your radius flatter on the top, on the higher frets, and keep the 7¼ inch radius on the lower frets. So that's basically a compound radius, what gives you an almost 9½ inch radius on the top. It's still pretty round, so I guess it's more like 9.2 inch radius. It's just in a flatter than the original state to not choke out. So it is possible to modify your guitar or let someone do it for you, because it's a little tricky and you do have to know what you're doing. My recommendation is trying the guitar before you fall in love with it, because if you played 2-3 different 7¼ inch radius guitars, you will know what to expect. George Carvioniaris wrote, Kris, help! I have a Fender Squier Strat Affinity, what to remove tremolo bridge and make it into a hardtail bridge. Toman have parts for this mod and where to find them. And is this mod possible? Please help and comment and keep up the good work. Thank you very much. I'm trying to keep up the good work. As soon as you have routing for a tremolo on your guitar, you cannot install a hardtail bridge unless you fill up all those holes with wood, But for that, you really need someone who knows his way around wood. It has to be glued in perfectly, like it has to fit, like no gaps, because otherwise, you know, it will just fall out after a time. It's not worth the trouble. I would just simply make the trem sit on the top of the guitar. That's exactly what I have. You only need to tighten these strings. I also have 4 in it. Original state was like only 3 springs, but I didn't want the trem to be that light, you know, when I'm moving the bar, the trem bar. So I've installed the 4th one and also screwed these 2 screws. Wait, reflections, there you go. These 2 screws way more into the body. With that, you pull the whole trem on the surface of the body, on the top of the body. So right here, it's pretty tight on it, right? So that is the easiest way to fake hardtail bridge. Julio Ortiz, whichever. Hey dude, love the sound of your LP. Which pickups are you using? That neck humbucker is pure honey. Well, it is. Thank you. Come over here, baby. So, this is the guitar we're talking about. It's a 58 reissue Les Paul. I love the acoustic sound. Oops, it's dropped. And the pickups. I didn't like the original pickups, even though in many cases I love the custom buckers that come in custom shop Les Pauls. But I didn't like them in this guitar. They were just a little too harsh. I accidentally found this pickup. It's a raw vintage humbucker. As soon as I had it in, I played 1 chord and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm so happy. Perfect match. Yeah, I love it. Happy you like it too. Thank you for all of your comments. It's very interesting having all these conversations going on. You guys take it easy, and don't forget about subscription and hitting the bell and everything, and you know what to do down there. See you very soon. Cheers.